Pretty much the first thing you learn on any rebreather course is that getting water in the breathing loop is a bad thing. So, if you get to the end of a dive and the inside of your scrubber container looks like mine here, then you know things haven't gone very well. So today's video is my story of what happened, how it happened, and how I managed to get to the surface okay. What you can expect in today's video is a bit about how rebreathers work, some stuff about underwater communication, some of the kit that I used, what I did to get to the surface okay, and even there's a little bit of glimpse of dolphins if you hang on long enough. So plenty to see today. This dive started off like an awful lot of other ones. Didn't seem any different in any way. So here I am on the boat, waddling my way behind my buddy there, James, who's diving in a red bear. Don't see too many of these around these days. In fact, he's recently got rid of his. But you can see it's a bit lumpy. So because it's a bit lumpy, we haven't gone too far out. We're diving a wreck called the East Point that's 67, 68 metres to the seabed. As usual, we've got Liz on the surface supporting us. She's absolutely awesome. The most elegant entry you'll ever see. Doesn't matter. James is in the water. I'm in the water after him. We're all good. And it's time to go down the shot line. We're not the first in. We're not the second in. We're probably third or the fourth pair in. And we're going to be heading down now. As I do in some of my other videos, I'm going to use the opportunity presented by the descent to do a bit of an explanation. In order to understand what's happening on this dive, it's useful to have a basic knowledge of how rebreathers work. This is the one that I use, an AP Inspiration, but they're all pretty much the same. The key thing with a rebreather is they use the fact that the air that we breathe in is very similar to the gas that we breathe out. As you can see, the majority is unchanged except for a small amount of the oxygen has been converted to carbon dioxide. So what a rebreather does is it has a closed loop. When you breathe in, gas comes in from the counter lungs, which are essentially plastic bags, and when you breathe out, the gas goes from your lungs into the counter lungs. The rebreather has a one-way system, so gas can only travel in one direction, which means that every time you breathe out and breathe in, gas travels through the scrubber. And the purpose of the scrubber is to remove the carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is a bad gas. If you breathe enough of it, or you have a high enough percentage of it in your breathing loop, it will eventually kill you. The other thing that the rebreather does is it replaces the oxygen that has been consumed. In modern electronic rebreathers, this is all done automatically. There's a system of sensors and some electronics that calculate how much oxygen is needed, and they put that into the back into the rebreather loop. There's also always the option to manually add oxygen should it be required. Now, as you go deeper, the pressure increases, and the pressure increase causes the loop to be squashed. What that means is when you go to depth and you breathe in, there isn't enough gas in the counter lungs to fill your lungs. So what we need to do is add additional gas, which is provided by something called the diluent. That can be either added manually through another button on the front of the unit, or through an automatic system which senses that you need more gas than is currently in the loop, and therefore automatically adds diluent. Conversely, when you come to ascend, the gas in the loop will expand and therefore needs to be gotten rid of. If it expands too much, there's a potential for it to rupture the plastic bags of the counter lungs. Therefore, the rebreather will have an overpressure valve that will dump gas. In reality, most rebreather divers get rid of the gas before it gets near to that point. Normally this is done either through a manual dump or dumping it through the corner of your mouth, which I think is what most rebreather divers do, and it's certainly what I do. So there's a basic introduction to how rebreathers work, which I hope was useful. Returning to the dive, you'll see I've been in the descent while we've been talking about the rebreather. I've just put on my tag on the lazy shot, and I'm now heading down. As I'm going down, my ADV, my auto add, is continuing to put diluent in and maintaining the breathing loop at a level that's comfortable for me to breathe. You can also, this is incredible, I mean we're only 47 metres down and you can start to see the top of the wreck there. It's the steering quadrant, which does stand up about 15 or 16 metres high, but even so it's a great sign that the visibility is going to be good. You can also see strobes belonging to divers in front of me. They've put them on the line already and I'm going to be putting mine on shortly. As I say, I'm in the descent here. My loop is being filled full of gas using that auto add function. At this moment in time, I don't know that there's anything wrong with my rebreather. Everything just seems fine. I'm really excited about the dive. Visibility is great. I mean, you can see a diver there off the back of the stern on the seabed. You know, that's got to be 10, maybe 15 metres visibility there, which is incredible. There's also loads of ambient light down here as well, which is quite unusual on this wreck. It can be quite dark. I've probably done it 6 or 7 times, and these are definitely some of the best conditions I've dived it in. So I'm on the wreck now. What I'm thinking at this point is the last time I dived it, which was actually only a month or 2 before this dive, I found a plate, quite a nice plate. It had the logo on for the Furness Withy line, and that's who owned the ship, the East Point. It was sunk in March 1917 and about 5,000 tons, so quite a big ship, and you know, really nice. So if I'm honest, I quite fancy getting myself another plate. I think I know where they are, so I'm going to be heading there. Just beforehand though, I spot something else, and you can see it just in the left of the picture there. Not 100% certain what it is, so I'm going to turn it over and have a look at it. So all this time, I'm thinking there's nothing wrong with my rebreather. The dive is all going great. I'm enjoying myself. I'm looking around and I'm finding stuff. So that is all good. What is actually happening though is, unbeknownst to me, is there is a very small leak in the top of my canister for my scrubber. And what's happening is a small trickle of water is getting into the rebreather, or rather a little bit of air is leaking out of the rebreather and water is going in. So what's happening is that the auto add on the diluent is detecting every time the loop volume drops below what I can breathe. It detects that and it puts a little bit more diluent in. Now at this point in the dive, I don't notice it, and I don't notice it because I've just come down the descent. I'm quite excited, but also I'm still changing depth continuously. You see I'm going down and I'm coming up, and every time you change depth on a rebreather, it's normal for you to lose a bit of gas when you go up and then put a bit of gas in when you go down. And these kind of things, because I've done so much diving, these kind of things have almost become subconscious, so I'm not really thinking too much about it. So, but the rebreather is very slowly starting to fill up with water, and I'm also using gas from my diluent cylinder at a far greater rate than I would do normally, because normally once you got on a wreck and the loop volume had been brought up to the right level for the depth, so enough gas had been in to give you the right volume, then almost certainly the diluent wouldn't be used again, which is why you actually only use a tiny amount of gas on even quite deep dives with the rebreather. Now, what that does mean is that diluent cylinders are quite small. So mine on this rebreather is a 3 litre cylinder, and typically on a dive like this I would expect to use maybe 40 bar of that. So you know, maybe, I don't know, 40 out of 200. What's that? Probably a fifth, I guess. And certainly a single cylinder would do me for 3 or 4 dives normally. But on this dive I'm going to be chewing through it a lot quicker because it's being used. Well, it's been vented to the water. So But I don't know this at this moment in time. At this moment in time, I'm pretty much at where I think the plates are. This is just to the aft of the engine. So I'm looking around for where the plates are. And you can see there's various pipes and other bits and pieces on there. So the plates were around here. As I looked up there, I think you see again just how great the conditions are on this dive. Now, as you can see on this video, I haven't gone straight into explaining what happened with this whole dive and what I did about it and all those kind of things. And the reason for that is that what I'm trying to do is kind of show how slow and almost insidious the fault that I had was, how it took a long time to manifest. I mean, I've done, I don't know, 1,000 or 1,500 rebreather dives or something like that. And it took me a long time to realise that there was something wrong. And what I'm trying to do with this video is explain why it took me so long to realise there was something wrong. And even when, as you'll see in a bit, when I did realise there was something wrong, it took me quite a while to figure out what it was and to, I guess more importantly, to do anything about it. So I guess what I'm trying to do is with this video is talk you through my thought process. I mean, as you can see here, I've just found a load of plates. They're all broken, but I'm just wafting off the dirt there so I can have a better look at them. I think there's a big stack of them there. They're kind of almost concreted together, but they've been broken off, probably by people trying to get them out and using a bit much force, I guess, and then snapping them off. The east point is very well dived, so by the standards of technical dives, it's quite close to Plymouth. It's 60 odd meters. It's a big, picturesque wreck. So that's why it's been dived a lot. Although, interestingly, the bell has never been found. So if you want to get yourself a bell, there's got to be one somewhere on the east point. You've just got to figure out where it was and try and find it. So so I'm down here on the wreck. My rebreather loop is slowly filling up with water, and when it fills up with water, it's dumping gas. My automatic diluent valve is slowly putting that gas into my rebreather, but because I'm busy, because I'm changing depth, I'm not noticing that my ADV is firing often. Now you can criticise that and you say, well, you should have noticed. And you're probably right. And I think it's round about now, or maybe a bit later on, that I do start to realise that something is wrong with my with my loop, and I'm going to take some actions in a minute. And I'll talk you through those. But before I do that, somebody out there already, anybody who's a rebreather diver, is going, surely you realised that there was a problem with your rebreather when you did your positive and negative checks, and you're absolutely right. That is exactly the moment I should have identified that there was something wrong with my rebreather on the positive and negative checks. So I actually believe that I carried out positive and negative checks, but it's entirely possible that I didn't. I also hear people out there going, oh, you should have used a checklist. You should have built your rebreather with a checklist, and then you'd have known for certain that you'd have done positive and negative checks. And once again, you're probably right. If I'd done it using a checklist, I would have definitely known whether I'd done positive or negative checks. So yeah, mea culpa. I'm guilty for not using a checklist. Having said that, I think I did do my positive and negative checks. If you're not a rebreather diver and have no idea what I'm talking about with positive and negative checks, then positive and negative checks are a way for checking that your rebreather loop isn't compromised. So essentially what you do is you overpressure your rebreather loop by breathing into it a lot and then sealing it shut and waiting to see if so you put the counter lungs to their maximum inflation, all the loops are completely full, and then you sit there for 5 minutes and you wait to see if it starts sagging down and starting emptying. And if it starts emptying, then obviously there's a problem, there's a leak somewhere. So that's a positive check. A negative check is exactly the opposite, i.e. you suck everything out of the rebreather loop, ideally slightly below ambient pressure. Once again, close it up, leave it for 5 minutes and wait to see if it starts filling up again. And if it starts filling up again, once again, you know that you have got a leak somewhere, and therefore that's the opportunity to do something about it. So positive and negative checks, a great thing, and should have picked up on this issue. Now, I'm just going to throw one thing in there, which is that the thing that caused this, and you will see later on, is a little hose that was trapped outside in a place it shouldn't have been. And I actually don't think it disturbed the seal on the top of the canister enough on the surface. I think as I was going down, the depth put a different pressure on it. You know, it was mismatched pressure or something, and that was enough to open it up and to compromise it. I have no way of proving that, other than I think I did my positive and negative checks, but who knows? I've got no way of proving any of that. But anyway, on the dive, so round about this point, or maybe slightly later on, I'm aware that I'm using more diluent than I should be, because you've probably seen now I haven't gone up or down very much recently, and therefore I am starting to hear my automatic diluent valve, that auto add thing, firing more often than it should. So what I do at that point is I close down the auto add function. There's a way of isolating it on the rebreather, which I do. So it's no longer automatically adding, and therefore what then starts happening is, as the gas leaks out of the unit, it becomes more difficult for me to breathe. And as it becomes more difficult for me to breathe, I have to inflate, or I have to put gas in manually. And I do that several times. And once I've done it several times, it becomes reasonably clear to me that there's some sort of problem. And the only logical explanation for if you need to put gas in your loop is that gas is leaving the loop somehow. And the question is, therefore, how is it leaving the loop? Well, there's a couple of main options. One is that you are breathing it out of your mouth. Now, obviously, I can tell when I'm doing that. The other option is that you have a leak in your unit. And there's quite a few different places where you could have a leak in a unit. One of the things that I've had happen on other dives is that there is a manual dump for the counterlungs, and I mentioned this, I think, during the what is a rebreather bit of the video. So the manual dump for the counterlungs is on a bit of string, and sometimes it gets caught underneath other parts of the rebreather, and therefore the manual dump is held open, and therefore you can lose gas that way. I've had that happen several times, and I've changed the length of the bit of string on my counterlung dump, so it shouldn't happen. Having said that, at some point in this dive, I make an active point of checking my counterlung dumps to make sure that they haven't got stuck. I can remember doing it really clearly. I then carried on for a bit longer and was still having to manually put gas in, so I was still losing gas. So at that point, I grab hold of my buddy because I want them to have a look at my unit and see where the leak is coming from. Now, I'm going to do something I don't do very often on my videos, which is I'm going to chop out a load of the dive. Now, what you're missing is a whole load of this sort of stuff, which is me turning stuff over, having a look at things, not find anything very useful. But the reason I've skipped is because I want to kind of cut to the chase. I want to get to the next interesting bit about my rebreather, which is the bit when I ask my buddy to have a look at me. At this point, I'm pretty convinced that there's something going on. I've closed my automatic add. I have been adding gas and I've realised there's gas coming out of my loop. So basically what I need is the help of my buddy to try and figure out where the gas is going from. So, because I can't see it. So this is me, as you can see there, gesturing to my buddy. I'm saying, look, there's gas coming out my loop. I need you to have a look for it. I need you to find where it is. So, so this is James. He's going to have a look while I'm just looking down, and I'm giving him plenty of opportunity to have a good look over my unit. My thought at this point is it should be really easy. There's gas coming out of the loop. So I look back at him, and he goes, "No, you're absolutely fine. There's nothing coming out of you. I can't see anything wrong." And that just strikes me as really bizarre. I know that there's gas coming out. I know that it's got to be going from somewhere. So it should be really easy to see. Why can't he see? But clearly he can't. So that's a real mystery. So I think, okay. And you start to question yourself in these kind of situations. Maybe it's something I'm doing wrong. Maybe, I'm imagining it, but I know I'm not imagining it because I'm sticking gas in my loop. So it gives me an interesting challenge. Now, one of the things about rebreathers diving is by and large stuff doesn't happen quickly. So you've got plenty of time to mull things over. And in this case, I'm still, although I know that I'm losing gas, I don't feel that I'm using vast amounts. I don't feel that it's a real emergency at this point in time. I'm just kind of getting an increasing sense of unease. I guess that would be the best way of describing what's happening. And I think when you are feeling uneasy and you're not happy underwater and you're at 60 odd meters, then there's really one solution to the problem. The solution to the problem is to get out of the water. So that's what I'm going to do now. I am starting to head back from pretty much the engine area to the stern, because the stern's where the shot is, and the shot is my best way of getting out of the water. Of course, you might say, well, why didn't you just ascend from where you are? That's a reasonable suggestion. You may also say, well, if you're not happy with the integrity of your rebreather loop, why haven't you bailed out and gone on to open circuit? Those are good questions. I would say when you're diving on a rebreather and you have something wrong with you, you always have options available, and what you have to do is kind of weigh up the advantages or the disadvantages of those options. So for me, particularly on a technical dive like this, there's some real attractions to the shot line. One of the attractions to the shot line is that you have loads of other divers around there, and with loads of other divers is going to come loads of gas. So that's a really useful thing. You also are going to be on the shot line, which is where the skipper's expecting you. If you bail out, if I bailed out from the engine area, I would have had to put up a delayed SMB, and then when I was doing my decompression, I would be separated from the other divers, so I wouldn't have their gas. The skipper would have the additional challenge of trying to follow me and the other divers on the shot line. And at this point in time, I didn't feel that the emergency was significant enough. It wasn't important enough for me to do that. Ditto. Why didn't I bail out to my deep bailout? I could have done that. It would have obviously removed the risk of the loop flooding and anything. But once again, I could still breathe adequately, even though I was losing gas. And I was having to refill it. I didn't feel that I was in danger of running out of gas. And I did actually, you can't see it on the video, but I did check my contents gauge on my diluent cylinder. And although it was getting quite low, I still had plenty to get back to the shot line. And I knew that once I was on the shot line and a bit shallower, I could either plumb into my rebreather. I could use either my deep bailout or I could use my shallow bailout gas, and I could stay on the loop and just basically run the loop off that, using it effectively as a kind of semi-closed rebreather. So I had plenty of options there, and so that's why I chose to get back to the shot line. You may recall from the descent that the shot line was really close to the steering quadrant, And I'm in the fortunate position of having some video from James. He didn't take much video of me during the dive, but he did take some video as we get to this point. And the question you've probably been asking is, where was all the gas going from my rebreather loop? And it's a really good question. It's one that I've not answered. And I think this short piece of video shows the answer to that. What's happening is that the gas is coming out of the top of my canister, and it's then getting stuck under the yellow box that forms part of the G-box. So most of the time while I'm in horizontal trim, it's just there caught underneath. It's only when I sort of look up really or change from that horizontal trim position that the gas vents, and you probably saw it there coming out in a huge bubble. And that's why James couldn't see it when he was looking at me, and that's why as you'll see later on, when another few people look at it, they can't see it either. So this is another piece of James's footage slightly later on. Once again, you can see right by the steering quadrant, and you'll see once again when I change position, there's another big burble of gas leaving my loop. So it's really clear where it's going, but only in that kind of circumstance when I change to that vertical position. So quite perplexing, but once you know the solution, easy to spot. So, but underwater, obviously not a clue. We're now back with me, and as you can see, I'm back at the shot line. I'm starting my ascent. Conditions are absolutely wonderful. I've probably been underwater for about half an hour at this point, so I'm going to have quite a lot of deco. By this point, not only do I know that I'm losing quite a bit of gas, I'm also aware that I've got quite a bit of water in my rebreather loop. It's a bit harder to breathe than it should be, and also I can hear a bit of a gurgling sound that's been really getting worse. Now, you often get water in your rebreather loop for various different reasons, but normally it's only quite a small amount. At this point, I'm aware that I've got quite a lot of water in my loop now. In itself, it's not the end of the world. Once upon a time, you would have to worry about things like caustic cocktails if the water got to the softener lime. But I know that you don't get that with modern softener lime. So the only real issue is the fact that obviously I don't want my breathing loop to be full of water. I want it to be full of diving gas, and I want my breathing to be as easy as possible. I don't want it to be difficult. So I'm back up here at the lazy shot. As you can see, about 40 meters. I'm going to take my tag off, and I'm happy because this is clearly a good place to be. But I'm unhappy because I know there's something fairly significantly wrong with my rebreather. There's a lot of water in there, and I'm finding it difficult to breathe. So I am going to need to try and do something about it. So I know there's going to be quite a lot of people on the shot line, so my plan is to get up to round about my first decompression stops and then enlist some more aid. I've already asked James to have a look at it down at the bottom. You saw that. He couldn't see anything, so I'm kind of hoping that the problem may become a bit more obvious when we get up shallow. So here I am ascending up to my first deco stop. The good news is, because I've cut my dive a bit short, and also because the dive isn't really that deep by the standards of some of the other ones I've done, that means that my first deco stop is relatively shallow. It's at 27 meters. As I ascend, I'm doing all the usual sort of stuff. You can see me here. I'm changing the set point on my handsets and my standalone off-board dive computer. So I've gone to 1.5 bar PO2 for the decompression phase of the dive, and that obviously cuts the deco time down a bit. Although, as we're going to see in a bit, that doesn't really become relevant because I'm not going to be staying in closed circuit for too much longer. So still hard to breathe, and actually by this point starting to get quite hard to breathe. So not great. Now, one of the things that I always carry with me on my dives is a set of wet notes. So effectively some underwater note paper and an underwater pencil so that I can write things should I ever need to. And I'm already thinking that what I need to do is communicate with the other divers. I've asked James to have a look at my loop. He couldn't see anything, but clearly there was. So what I need to do is communicate better with a diver on the deco stops and explain to them that I do have a real problem and that they need to find out what it is. So there's my wet notes. You can see I've got them out. I don't know why I've got them that close to my face, but I've got them out, and I'm going to get out and I'm going to write on them, explain that I've got a problem. Writing underwater isn't the easiest thing in the world, and especially not when you've got dry gloves on like I've got there. You can see I'm finding it even kind of slightly challenging turning over the pages. But eventually I get it, and I'm going to write a little message on there, and then I'm going to give it to one of the other divers. Now you can see there I've put the message up on the screen. With the benefit of hindsight, I think I'd have probably written a bit more, be a bit clearer that I'm in. I've got some real issues with my rebreather, and I want them to concentrate on it, because I give it to this diver here. That's James. He's going to read it, and he's going to have a look at the loop, and he's going to make the same discovery that the other James, who's a bit below, makes, which is that he can't really see anything. So he's having a good look over. He's looking over my back there, trying to see if there's anything coming out, and he's going to very, very shortly tell me that he can't see anything, which is really frustrating, and I guess kind of confusing as well. Why can't anybody see anything coming out of my loop? I know gas is going. I know that I'm getting water in there. So there's got to be something going on here. Now what I'm going to do is fast forward another probably minute or two, and James hasn't said anything to me. So I look back down at him, and he's clearly not paying any attention to me. And there you go. He's just told me there's nothing wrong with my gear, which is really irritating and frustrating. So I gesticulated him, quite significantly, and say, look, there's definitely something wrong. You need to figure out what it is. You need to have a good look. So he's having another good look. I'm kind of moving around. I'm letting him have a good look. Because obviously I want some answers. Basically, I don't want him to be kind of going into his own personal deco space. He wants to be looking at my unit and my gear and finding out where the problem is. So that's what I think he's doing. But then when I look back at him, you can see he's not looking at me, and so this is communicating again with him, telling him, look, he needs to figure out what's going on. So I guess I persisted a bit. I got there in the end, because he's definitely having a good look at me this time, and I'm obviously not going to sort of leave him be until he gives me a solution to the problem. So James is looking over my gear. You can see the other James. So we've got two Jameses: ex-CCR James, the guy with the blue helmet, and Red Bear James, who's the guy with the Red Bear. They're both in and around at the moment. They're both having a look at me, and I'm getting something back from James now. He's trying to communicate with me, which is kind of good. So what I think I'm going to do in a minute is give him the wet notes, and James can write what the problem is on the wet notes. There we go. There's the wet notes going, and once again, you're not going to be able to see what he writes on them, but I'm going to stick it up on the screen. So you can see the bottom bit there is what James has written. He's written inside pot. Now I take that to mean inside the back of my rebreather, which is clearly not good news at all. I guess one of the things that's probably worth highlighting at this point is how slow this all is, and I think it's the point I made earlier on, which is that it's very rare that something happens quickly on a rebreather. So in fact, you can just see me there checking my diluent there, contents gauge on my diluent, and you can see I haven't got very much left at this time. I'm probably into about 20 or 30 bar, so not great. There's a message coming back to me inside the pot. So what I'm going to do now is say to him, right, I need to know a bit more than that. So what I need you to do is go inside. So he's going to come behind me, and he's actually going to take off the yellow cover on the outside of my rebreather, and going to have a look inside, and then he's going to write me another wet note. But yeah, going back to that point, nothing happens quickly. So you can see here, we've got plenty of time. I am finding it really quite uncomfortable to breathe round about now. I'm having to put a lot of diluent in. It seems pretty much as soon as I put it in that it's coming straight back out. So I know there's a lot of loop in my a lot of water in my loop. I can hear it every time I breathe. And for those of you who have had a wet rebreather or a wet breathe, you know just how horrible that is. I mean, in this case, I could actually hear the gas bubbling inside it, so I could hear when I breathed out that it was actually passing through water. So that noise, such as when you blow bubbles through water, that was kind of what I was getting. So at this point, I know I've got an hour and a half or something of deco to do. So I'm pretty confident I'm going to be bailing out pretty soon. But what I want to do is get this phase of the investigation over with, and then confirm it's as bad as I think it is, and then I'll be able to breathe out and get on to my a shallow bailout mix. And you can see here that I'm about 18 meters. So I'm carrying 2 bailout cylinders. One bailout cylinder is is my deep bailout, so that's got a gas that I can breathe at the bottom of the dive, but won't be particularly good for breathing at this depth because it won't have enough oxygen in it really. It'd probably be fine at this depth, but certainly it's not going to help me with my decompression, and and if I get a bit shallow, then there's a potential for it to become hypoxic. So the second gas I've got, my shallow bailout, on this dive is 50% oxygen and I think 10 or 20% helium. So it's a good gas for this depth that will help me decompress and therefore help me get close to the surface. But the closer I get to the surface, I'm going to need a richer oxygen mix than 50%. Really, I want an 80 or 100%. Now I'm not carrying that. It's unlikely that any of the other divers with me are carrying that either. So our process for that is we get it off the boat. So you're going to see that later on. So you can see here I'm communicating with James. You can see that you probably saw there that the back of the rebreather's come off, and James is having a look inside, and what he's going to do is confirm that I am in a really poor place, and he does this by writing on the wet notes and handing it back to me. And as you can see, what he's written there is it's from scrubber, lots of gas. That doesn't sound like a good message. So, and to be honest, I kind of was expecting to get something like that. So I know that things are. I'm not in a good place. I think I already knew that, but it just confirms that what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to bail out to open circuit. So for those of you who don't know, that means I'm going to need to stop breathing off my rebreather, and I'm going to start breathing off one of the bailout cylinders. And I've already highlighted the bailout cylinder I'm going to be using is my shallow bailout. It's the one that's got the 50% nitrox mix in. First things first though, I've obviously got my wet notebook out. I've done a lot of diving with that notebook, so I'm going to put it away, and I'm going to put it back in my pocket so that I don't lose it. And is that the most important thing that I should be doing right now? No, it's not, clearly. But I think once again this just shows probably the lack of pressure. That time pressure is what I meant that I'm under. I know that I'm going to have to bail out, but I can still breathe. It's not the easiest breathe in the world, but there's nothing stopping me breathing. So I'm not panicking or anything here. I am just getting myself all sorted so that I can bail out in a nice orderly fashion, and then obviously there's a whole sequence of other things that I'm going to have to do. Everyone's got their own technique for bailing out. Mine is kind of a slight adaptation of the drills that you would use for gas switching if you were doing, say, an accelerated decompression dive. But the first thing I've got to do is free up my mouthpiece. I dive with a gag strap or mouthpiece retaining strap, for those of you familiar with them. So I need to unclip that. Then what I'm doing here is I'm just going through the NOTOX stuff. So I'm checking that it's my name. I'm checking the maximum operating depth on the cylinder that I'm using. I'm checking that the cylinder is turned on. I'm getting the mouthpiece in a position that I can easily get it. I'm then going to take the loop out of my mouth, and it's going to go above my head, and then I'm going to go on to the open circuit regulator, and I'm going to start breathing. Once all those things I've done, I'm going to make sure that I switch all my computers into open circuit mode. And when I say all my computers, that's the one that's on my handset for my rebreather, and the one that's on my standalone off-board Shearwater that I carry on my right-hand wrist. So you can see I think I'm just about to do the gas switch. I've positioned myself so that I'm close to the shot line. Yeah, I can do this without holding onto a shot line, but sometimes it's nice to have them. Sorry, yeah, no, the exchange has actually happened now. You can probably see the bubbles from the open circuit going past. So I'm just making sure everything else is sorted out with computers and all that kind of bits and pieces. Really nice thing about this is that my two buddies, James are both close by. They're well aware something's wrong with me, and they're being super attentive, which is absolutely fantastic. And it's reassuring in this situation to have those people around. So I have bailed out. I'm on open circuit. I've sorted out all my bits and pieces in terms of handsets and everything. So what's the next item on the agenda? Well, the next item on the agenda is going to be letting the surface know that there's a problem. And the reason I need to let the surface know there's a problem is because I want them to deploy some gas from the surface. Part of our protocol is that we have 3 cylinders on board the boat. There's a cylinder that you can breathe at 40 metres, there's a cylinder that you can breathe at 20 metres, and there's a cylinder that you can breathe at 6 or so metres. Now, I'm on the 50%, so I'm effectively on the 20 metre gas, so I'm not interested in anything other than really the 6 metre gas, so that's the 100% that I want. But it isn't going to be there unless I tell the boat that I want it. So that's going to be the next item on the agenda. Now you can see once again that there's no particular rush going on here. I've got a Ali 80, so an 80 litre cylinder of 50% that's going to last me at this depth for a very long time. So I'm just breathing on that, and while I'm getting myself all sorted out, I'm going to be, I think you probably just see me clipping off my torch there, and then I'm going to get out my delayed SMB. Everyone's got their own preferred configuration for these things. Obviously, finger spools are very popular these days. I don't use one. I've got a lovely big chunky Kent tooling reel. They're fantastic, and they make this kind of thing really easy. So that is going to be the thing that I get out relatively shortly. Before I do that though, there's something that everybody on the boat laughed at me about when they got out of the water, and that's this thing here. So what you've got there is we always have a break in the shot line, and on the break in the shot line we store our devices to help deco. So there's 2 things on the break. One is my Kindle, and the other thing is a phone in an underwater housing that is used by Blue Helmet James. Now, everyone said to me, "Why did you get your Kindle off? Why didn't you concentrate on getting your delayed SMB up? Why were you even bothered with it?" And I think it probably says something about my state of mind at this point. I was feeling really relaxed. I knew I had quite a lot of decompression to do. I knew that I was in a good place, and so I thought, you know what, I'll have my Kindle with me, and at least I'll be able to read my Kindle while I'm doing the decompression. Now, I don't think any agency or any instructor will say that that's a particularly good idea, but hey, you know what, this was my bailout, so sod the lot of them. So anyway, I've got my Kindle, I've clipped it onto my gear, and James is obviously going to get his thing in a minute. And what I'm then going to do is start thinking about putting up my delayed SMB. Now, I don't want to put the delayed SMB up too close to the shot line. And the reason I don't want to put it up too close to the shot line is because there's all those other people above me. And if I put it up on the lazy shot, then it runs a risk of them getting entangled in it. It's also, the skipper might not want to come too close to the lazy shot to drop stuff in. So what I'm therefore going to do, as you can see here, is I'm moving a bit away. I've come off the lazy shot. I'm getting myself a bit of sea room, and you can see there I've got my delayed S&B out. And the protocol we follow for calling for gas is one that I think is pretty much a standard. So what I'm going to do is deploy an orange marker first of all, which is that big one there. And then once I've deployed the orange marker, I'm going to deploy a yellow marker after it. And the combination on the surface of the yellow marker and the orange marker, that the skipper now knows that he needs to send the gas down. So and you'll see they do that relatively quickly. So here you go. First thing is that the orange PS&B is going up. Lots of people use different things for filling delayed S&Bs. Some people do it with a crack bottle, i.e. a small bottle attached to it. Some people do it with their regulators. I actually use the auto air on my wing on the rebreather to fill it. So anyway, that has gone up now. So that's up on the surface. Second thing I'm going to do is take off the yellow delayed S&B, and you can see me just doing that at the moment. I have them all attached together, so it's really easy to do. And I've got a little clip there that I can put on the delayed S&B line that I'm going to send up. Now this does have a CO2 canister on it, this one. It's also got a way that you can inflate it off a hose should the should the CO2 not work. Fortunately, the CO2 canister does work, and off it goes. So all of a sudden the boat on the surface is going to see those two symbols. It's going to see the orange delayed S&B, and it's going to see the yellow delayed S&B. And I think any time a dive boat skipper sees that, they start to worry, because they know something's going wrong. They don't know what's going wrong. They don't know how many divers it is. All they know is they've got to get the cylinders in the water. Now, I guess this is another good thing about being close to the lazy shot. If I'd have done that, if I'd have ascended direct off the wreck and then put up this symbol, the skipper would be concerned, because he only has one set of cylinders. If he deployed the cylinders with me, then they wouldn't be available should anyone else have a problem. So by doing it off the lazy shot, the gas is in the water, all the divers are there because the lazy shot's been released. So, you know, in theory, several of us could use that gas. So it's another benefit for being up on the lazy shot. What you've also probably seen is that my buddy James Gregory, the guy with the red bear, he's also come off and he's deployed his delayed S&B. So he's kind of sticking with me. So the skipper knows that I've got a buddy, which is obviously good for the skipper. It also means that, you know, should we need some more gas, we've got loads of gas between us. So all is well, and it's now just a case of sitting here and waiting for the skipper to come over with the boat and to deploy the gas. It's all going to come down on one line, so it's a 40-metre long line with a 40-metre cylinder at the bottom of it, the 20-metre cylinder at 20 metres, and then the 6-metre gas is obviously going to be at 6 metres. Now I'm clearly at 12, so all those cylinders, 2 of them will be below me and 1 of them will be above me. You can see there what I don't know why I've let go of my delayed S&B, but I have for a bit. And there we go. All is well. As you can see, I've jumped forward a bit of time again. I've ascended from 12 to 9 meters, and you can see there we go. The gas is now in. That black rope has got the gas on it. So that's clearly good news. I mean, it's taken a while, you know, maybe 4 or 5 minutes. That's how come I've come up. But the important thing is not how quickly the gas is in. The importance that the gas is in, and I've got it. So once again, it comes back to this no rush thing. So I've got the gas, and you've probably seen what I do is I clip my delayed S&B onto it. That means that we're all going to stay together, which is important, because I am going to need that gas as I get up shallower. So the gas is in, I've got it, all is well. Just a case of clearing off my deco from 9 meters, and then I'll get up to 6 meters, and then I'll be able to switch on to the 100% oxygen that is there. So there's another fast forward taking place here, and you can see I've cleared off my 9 meter stops, and I'm starting to ascend up the black line towards, there it is, there's the 100% oxygen at kind of 6-ish meters. James, my buddy's still with me, but unfortunately this is probably one of the big things that I think I got wrong on this dive. One of the things I got wrong on this dive is I've allowed us to become separated from the other divers. Now you can see the viz isn't great, and that's probably why. But really, I could have focused a bit more on it, rather than I probably just zoned out. But so anyway, there's just the two of us. We're alone now, and you can see I've got up here to 6 meters. There's 100% oxygen, and the next item in the agenda is going to be going through those drills again. So I'm going to check the gas on that it's 100%. I'm going to turn on the cylinder. You can see there it's 100%. Cylinder that you've just seen me turn on. I'm getting the regulator mouthpiece out, and I'm then going to do the switch. I'm also once I've done the switch, I'm going to do the switch with my computers as well, so that my computers, both my handset and my offboard, both know that I'm on 100%. I'm also going to take the cylinder off the rope, and I'm going to attach it to my body rather than leaving it on the line where it's been dropped in, so that the gas I need is attached to me rather than attached anywhere else. And then I'm also going to use the opportunity to get rid of one of my cylinders that I no longer need, my deep bailout, and attach it to the line floating in the water. So there's quite a bit of admin to go on there, but it'll end up in the right situation, which is I'll have 2 cylinders attached to me. I'll have a 50% and I'll have the 100%, which are the 2 best cylinders for this kind of depth. And I will no longer have the deep bailout. That will be on the line that came down with the cylinders, and that's obviously the place that I want to be. Now that's going to take a bit of a while. It probably doesn't make particularly great watching, so I'm going to fast forward very shortly. Just before I do that though, I'm going to finish up letting you see me changing the settings on my 2 handsets. You've just seen me do the rebreather handset on my left hand side. You'll see me do the shear water on the right very shortly. It's really important that you do this. If I don't tell the computers what gas I'm breathing, then they won't know, and their decompression calculations, etc., will be based on whatever they think I'm breathing. Clearly, that's not a good thing to do. So getting your computer set right is important. So that's another little piece of the admin that goes on. Probably also worth mentioning that when I did that ascent, one of the things I needed to do was dump the gas in my counterlungs. So once I've shut the mouthpiece of my rebreather and I've got off the rebreather and got onto the open circuit gear, the gas in my rebreather will, inside the breathing loop, will expand when I ascend up through the water column. Pressure reduces, gas expands. Now the only way that has got of getting out of the rebreather is if I happen to manually dump it, or if the pressure exceeds or the volume exceeds the total volume and therefore activates the overpressure valve. So on a bailout ascent, it's really important for a diver to be thinking about what's happening with their rebreather loop and dumping the gas. I've already mentioned the manual dumps that there are on the side of the rebreather. And for a inspiration like I'm diving with back-mounted counterlungs, they are actually quite awkward to get to. They're quite low down on your right-hand side. It's probably also not the best place to have a dump as well, because you want a dump to be high. So when you do dump it, you've got to kind of adjust your body position to get the dump at the highest point of the breathing loop. So it is a bit of a faff, but it can be done. Right, you can see there that I've actually, in the process of taking, I've put one of the cylinders, the deep bailout is being put on the line. The other cylinder is the 100% is coming off the line and is coming onto me, and then I'll be in the configuration that I mentioned earlier on, and I'm all good. You can see that there's actually a bit of a swell. I think you saw that before I got in, which is why everything moves up and down every now and again. That does make this a little bit more awkward. It means that your buoyancy control's got to be pretty good. So I'm at 6 meters. I'm not holding onto the line here. I'm just obviously moving cylinders backwards and forwards. Trying to do it while holding on a line would be quite difficult. So need to make sure you've got your buoyancy sorted. And there you go. What I'm just doing there is checking that the deep bailout that I've put on the line is turned off, and the reason for that is because I don't want it to leak out. Deep bailout is mainly helium. Helium's expensive, clearly. Don't want it to leak out, don't want to lose it. That would be really upsetting. So the importance of me being near that drop line is now much less than it was. I don't really need that deep bailout anymore. What I do need is the gas that I've got on me. Having said that, there's still a big buoy on the top of it, and I do need the boat to know where I am, especially as I've rather foolishly become separated from the lazy shot and the other divers. So you can see there, I've unclipped the reel. I'm reeling up a bit, and what I'm going to do is reattach it onto the line, but I'm slightly above the cylinder that was below me. Now what's going to happen is I've got an awful lot of deco to do. Now clearly that doesn't make for great video, so I'm going to fast forward again for a bit. And the reason I fast forward is not so I can show you more video of us decompressing at 4 meters, but because of that there. I don't know if you can see it, but those are dolphins. So absolutely fantastic. You know, trying to see seeing dolphins on decompression stops is just awesome. Seeing dolphins on decompression stops while you're bailed out, well, that's just really special, isn't it? Poor old James there, who you probably saw they came up behind him. He says he absolutely almost lost it at that point, but it's great to see, and they did momentarily liven up the deco stops. Unfortunately, they then left, and it was only that brief glimpse that we saw them for, but still a great experience. Fast forward again, and this is right towards the end of the dive, so done all the deco, cleared all the stops. James is still with me, you know, good bloke that he is, and we're going to get to surface. You can probably see there's some red buoys just as we surfaced, and then the white buoy. The red buoys are the lazy shot. The white buoy is the gas that's been dropped in. The boat is over there as well. Yeah, so there's the red buoys, which is the trapeze and the lazy shot. There's the boat. They're obviously keeping a really good eye on us. They're really pleased to see me on the surface, so all is well. I showed this clip at the beginning, but that's a bit of video that James took of me, and you can see there I'm very pleased to be at the surface, very pleased that it's all gone well, and yeah, great moment. So next item on the agenda is to get out the water, and clearly the boat skipper wants to know what's going on. He's concerned about his divers, so he's getting over here and he's going to get us out of the water as quickly as we can. And while he's doing that, a bit of a moment for reflection. So, what do I think went well on this? Well, clearly, I got out of the water, nobody got hurt, our procedures worked really well, and that, I guess, is the ultimate thing. In terms of stuff that I'd have done a bit differently next time, well, I think I would probably have got out a bit earlier, maybe. I think, I probably left it a bit late for making the decision to get out of the water. I also think I needed to stay with the rest of the divers rather than becoming separated. I mean, as you saw it, I wasn't a long way from them when I got out of the water, but I would have been, much more. I'd have preferred to have been closer together. You can also say maybe I should have, used that checklist. Maybe I should have done my recorded my positive and negative checks. Well, that's a good point as well. So a few different things there, but I think far more went well than went badly, and as I said, the ultimate testimony is that I got out okay. Now, what I'm going to do is, just to finish off, I'm just going to show you what the problem was. This is the reason I had to bail out today. That little hose there sticking, just making sure that this O-ring didn't seal properly, and that's the result there. Clearly very good, but all's well that ends well. So not the greatest sound quality on that little clip, but you saw there that hose sticking out, just it's in the wrong place. It should have been further in. That's what caused my canister not to seal. That's what caused the gas to go out. That's what caused the water to get in, and ultimately that caused me to have to bail out on this dive. Good news, and probably testament to the quality of the AP Inspiration I dive, is that I dried that dried that all out, dried out the electronics, and then I dived this unit to a similar sort of depth on the very next day, and that was obviously yeah, that was great, and that dive went entirely fine, and so all was well. But I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you found it interesting. People who dive rebreathers, I hope you found it informative, and maybe learned something, or it's been thought-provoking. For those of you who don't dive rebreathers, I hope it wasn't too impenetrable. I tried to make it accessible and easy for people to understand. Here you go. You can see I'm coming back up the lift. There's the wonderful Liz to sort me out, make sure I'm all okay. Poor old James's skipper had broken his foot, so he's hobbling out there because he's very keen to find out what's going on. Everyone else is going to be interested as well, but clearly you guys already know the story. They're taking the stuff off me, and then I'm going to get sat down. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, or if you haven't, leave something in the comments. Obviously, as always, feel free to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, all that kind of stuff, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thank you very much.